Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Elland Road. Norwich City have suffered their first defeat this evening of 2024. They've been beaten by Leeds United by a single goal here this evening, 1-0. Patrick Bamford on 15 minutes. And a game that I think you could probably sit here and feel quite conflicted about, and I probably feel quite conflicted about because Norwich have done well in certain aspects. They've made steps in certain aspects. I think there's also some elements tonight which were a little bit frustrating and a little bit more frustrating, and has probably proved the difference between them leaving here with something compared to nothing. That being said, I felt this was probably on balance a fair result, and I think Leeds United probably just about edged this as a competition. That's not to say, as the title says, there's not positives within that, because there was, and there's a lot of positives to take. And I think first, I don't usually start with this, but I think there's a degree of context to be put around what we saw tonight. And this is a Leeds team who are the only team in the EFL who are unbeaten at home. I think before this game it was something like, or it was 10 wins out of 14, I think. So now 11 wins out of 15 and 4 draws within that. They are formidable on their own turf, and no team has come here yet and been able to take 3 points. Very few teams have been able to take anything away from Elland Road this year. It's the best home record in the Championship. It's the reason they are where they are, and it's the reason why I think they're one of the best teams at this level, of course, with the benefits that comes with having parachute payments and players like Jorginho Rutter and Southwell and Dan James when he was on, and Glenn Kamara, and all of those really good talent. So I think that's context worth considering, because for a lot of this game Norwich City competed against a lot of that, and they competed against it very strongly and very well, and they were competitive throughout this. And actually for the portion of the game where it did remain 1-0, and that was the vast majority of it, Norwich were well in it, and there was a spell in the second half where actually they weren't just in it, they were controlling it. And I think probably the anemia to fail to convert that period of possession into clear-cut opportunities has probably cost them tonight, as well as maybe squandering the moments that they did. David Vargan made one change tonight. Marcelino Nunez came in for Ashley Barnes from the start. That meant Gabriel Sara pushed up in support of Gabriel Sara, and I felt that was designed again to just wrestle a little bit of control, but also help Norwich with the quality of their possession in transition, to get them up the pitch. Gabriel Sara's quality to with the ball to unlock and get players in behind, as we saw for the second goal on Saturday, when he played the ball, cross-field ball, wasn't it, to Yanulis, I think, for the cross for John Rowe's goal. He's a brilliant link player and a combination player. I didn't feel he had his best game tonight, but you could see the logic, and I think we saw the benefits of him playing in that role at Bristol Rovers as well. So there was plenty of logic and sound logic to that. Nunez and McLean created a bit more of a solid base. I thought Norwich struggled to get Nunez into the game in the first half, but in the second half they unlocked him a lot more, and I don't think it's a coincidence that coincided with a lot more quality in possession, because technically he's one of the best operators that they have, and when they got him on the ball, they began to control it a little bit more and move it a little bit more. So that was the reason, I think, for the starting 11. And again, for the opening exchanges of this game, Norwich were in it and truly in it, and there were points where they pressed pretty high and pressed pretty well, and then it's probably just a series of lapses in concentration for the first goal. It's a really wayward pass from Gabriel Sara on his own box. He tries to lob it. That creates a bit of a scuffle in the middle of the pitch. Rutter, with the quality that he has, gets hold of it, sprays it out wide to Dan James. There are 3 Norwich City players there who just back off, who give James time and space to cross the ball into the penalty area. You can't do that, and Patrick Bamford just peels off Shane Duffy again, lapsed in concentration, and to give him the opportunity to head the ball into the ground and into the bottom corner from there. You can't do that at places like this against the quality of players that they have, and from there really Leeds looked to control it, and for the majority of the first half they did. They kept a lot of the ball, they nullified Norwich centrally. Norwich didn't have the moments that we've seen in recent games where they were sort of driving and cutting through Leeds. It was a little bit more controlled from the hosts. That being said, Norwich had 2 brilliant opportunities within 10 minutes of the interval. The first one's from Kenny McLean. It's a set piece, I think, that Duffy's tried to flick on at the near post. It's fell to him about 6 yards out. He's just off balance. He's leaning back. He can't get his head over the ball, and he's just scooped it over the bar. And then obviously the big one that I think is going to get spoken about, and Norwich City's best opportunity of the night, across from Jack Stacey from the right, which fell very, very kindly for Gabriel Sara. Someone suggested it. I haven't seen it back, but someone suggested it not subsequently anyway. I saw it back in real time. Slight deflection, which just I think changes the path of the ball. He doesn't connect with it sweetly, and that rolls wide. And actually, with Norwich being the team that they are at the moment, and you can see it in their results, you can see it in their performances, you can see it in the types of games that they're involved in at the moment. They're so tight, and when you play on those fine margins, you're so dependent on being clinical when you do get those opportunities, but also being really solid against the ball. And actually, in and when that chance falls for Sara and he misses it, and it's taken you 45 minutes to engineer a chance of that quality. That's frustrating, I think, and I'm sure Gabriel Sara, with the quality that he has, we only have to see his goal in the reverse fixture of this game. So much quality within those boots. I think he will feel disappointed that he didn't make better contact with the ball and wasn't able to quite sort of guide that into the net, and that will be a real source of frustration. The second half, again, I think you conflicting, because I've come on here and I've spoken about maybe Norwich City's deficiencies in possession quite consistently, and they've struggled to control games. They had a lot more of the ball in the second half, and I think they went in at the break and it was something like 35, might have been even lower than that percent possession. They've ended the game with pretty equal split to Leeds, and there's an element of that which was Leeds allowing them to have the ball in areas. They didn't want to get baited into that press that we've seen, and allowing Norwich pretty comfortably to have the ball in their sort of mid third, in their defensive third. But again, Meslier hasn't made a save, and this is, I think, the confliction, because we've seen real steps, I think, in terms of Norwich City's possession. What we haven't seen is them able to connect that possession from a midfield defensive perspective with their forward players. They didn't really get John Rowe into the game. They didn't really get Borja Sainz into the game. They struggled to get Josh Sargent into the game, and that in turn probably prevented them from moving up the pitch. So possession good as a general rule of thumb, and is a decent indicator for control. But by the same token, you have to be effective with it. It has to lead to somewhere and something, and it didn't tonight. And I just felt, when Leeds, as I said this before in a recent verdict, when teams cut off those kind of wide areas and Norwich lose that kind of long diagonal option that we see them split, where one fullback pushes on, and Norwich, again, in many of the tweaks they've made now, only one fullback will push high. So when they do that and a player draws in, Leeds were quite adept at just maintaining their position and making sure that those options were pretty close off, but also by keeping Somerville high, keeping Anthony high in the second half. And that meant two things, really. It put a thought in Norwich's mind that they had to have an extra man in reserve, and that probably prevented them at points from building in the free that they would like. But also, when they did win that transition, and there were times that they did that, and as Norwich took more risk and tried to put more men forward, that left spaces for Leeds to go and exploit. And there were points where they did that, and actually pretty much all of their opportunities in the second half came off Norwich City's turnovers. So yeah, look, the second half I felt was better from a in-ball possession element, but that came at the detriment of Norwich City and their attacking spark and their ability to create opportunities in transition, which they've done so nicely. So, and again, part of why that happened was because of what Leeds did, and Leeds were much happier to sit and absorb and let Norwich have the ball in those areas, because they knew as soon as they pressed, Norwich would then try and move up the pitch. That's the game plan. You try and bait opposition into pressing you and harassing you, and then you when one jumps, that leaves a space for a player, and you connect that way. And that should always leave, if you've got the quality in possession, that should always leave a player spare. And that as a concept is good, but again, it's dependent on your opposition coming in and doing that. And Leeds weren't that keen, even though, at points in the second half, the natives were getting restless. Elland Road was showing its frustration because Leeds weren't going and getting in the faces of Norwich City. But I think what we've seen from this Daniel Farke team, it is slightly different. I think definitely to the 18-19 team for a multitude of reasons. I think it's more effective. I think it's more streetwise. There's a ruthlessness about Leeds, which I guess he kind of had at Norwich in the second title-winning season. But the 18-19 was frenetic. It was high energy. It was exciting. It was intoxicating almost, really. They took lots of shots and low quality shots. Here, they're very much geared towards designing and ensuring they design high quality opportunities. And that came, and they recognised that came through turnovers. And I think that's probably why there was a reluctance from Farke to change it too much in that spell that Norwich City had possession. So in many ways, and it'll be interesting to hear what he says about it, even though Norwich have had a lot more of the ball in the second half, I think Daniel Farke will be pretty pleased with the areas that Leeds let them have it, and also the way that they defended centrally to prevent them from progressing it. And I think those two things combined is probably what makes this frustrating to an extent for Norwich City. And even though David Wagner will recognise those positives and recognise those steps in ball possession, there now needs to be the next bit. But again, crucially, I think the context is important, and what shouldn't be forgotten is the quality of that Leeds team, what they've done here at Elland Road, and the fact that for prolonged periods Norwich went toe for toe. Now we can, you can say, and I've had it kind of come back to me on social media a little bit, and it's a valid point that, is that where Norwich standards are? Is it about application and whatnot? But I think you have to recognise where you are a little bit. And Norwich are in a position where they come to these places against a team that's, as we said, unbeaten at home this season for half a season, if not more than that. And they've done pretty well, and they've done a lot better than Ipswich did here in terms of containing. And look, the outcome's the same, and it's not an achievement by any stretch of the imagination. But my point is, I think there does need to be recognition for how competitive they've been tonight and the steps that they've made, because there are positives. And oddly, in many ways, there's probably a little bit more to be positive about this performance than perhaps there was. Maybe I'm exaggerating it. Maybe not in terms of West Brom, but I think there's definitely elements of this performance that were good. There's elements of this performance that make it really frustrating, and Kenny McLean has kind of surmised that a little bit, speaking to him there, because there's the recognition that actually this has been a team that hasn't been that great in possession, that hasn't been able to control games, hasn't been able to have spells in games. And there was a 10-minute spell where they had Leeds penned in, and okay, yeah, they didn't create anything and they were anemic in front of goal, but I think we recognise that there's enough individual talent and quality in this Norwich side, and we've seen it. John Rowe, Borja Science, Josh Sargent, when they tick, when they connect, when they get those opportunities, and they're not going to play a team that good every week, that actually those spells of possession, if converted in the right setting and in the right game state against the right opponent, they're going to be able to connect them a lot better. And if they can do that, then this is a team that I think will have a lot more punch about it, whilst hopefully being a little bit tighter at the other end. And actually, the underlying numbers of it haven't shifted that much. Norwich still do concede high quality chances. They still don't create that many. I think that's what the numbers will show tonight. But I think it's hard to feel anything but not pleased, because you're never pleased with a defeat, but definitely you can recognise, I think, the elements that were good about this. And there were elements that were good. And I think that's what I would stress, because I feared tonight, to be honest, because you look at the quality that Leeds have in attacking areas, you combine that with what Norwich have struggled this year with in terms of players who are pacey, who are rotational, who are a bit off the cuff, technically very, very good. Look at the reverse fixture, very different contests, and I think there's positive stuff that Norwich can take out of that, and I hope that people do. But equally, I know it's a defeat, and that is always difficult to swallow. And ultimately, it does. I recognise, and I said this as well. It is an opportunity missed, because now the chasing pack, those above Norwich City, have an opportunity to widen that gap. Coventry can make it 5 points. Hull can make it 4 points, and it pushes that game now. Not this Saturday week against Coventry at Carrow Road, massive, because if Norwich lose that, they will give Coventry the opportunity to go 8 points ahead. But ultimately, I don't think it will be this game that will have cost that. It will be the games in the autumn and games where they haven't played so well. So look, I think to sum up and to reflect, I've been stood here plenty of times this season where I've said, not sure about that Norwich performance, not particularly great. And there are elements of tonight which were a bit like that. And you could question, kind of the attacking plan of it. And I think that's something now that we need to see. And it's very difficult. And I've said this before as well, because when you try and become a team that's difficult to beat and you turn the tap off at one end, or try and turn the tap off at one end, you can have, by virtue of doing that, a kind of negative impact on the other end. And Norwich's goal scoring has slowed down, as well as their kind of defensive numbers have slowed down as well. So they are a team that plays games on tight margins at the moment. If you do that, then you are going to be reflecting on moments. You're going to be reflecting on Gabby Sarah missing at one end, and that being said, I think Leeds created the better opportunities in the second half and could have killed this game off. So I think it's a fair result, but I think there's plenty of positives that Norwich City can take of it. I always say, and I've said this season, last season, there are ways to lose games, and I don't think that was a terrible way to lose a football match tonight. And the fact that we're probably leaving Elland Road with a little bit of frustration, I think that's a testament actually to maybe the steps that Norwich City have made in the last few weeks. So there you go. Confliction. I feel quite conflicted tonight, but that's in many ways I feel quite pleased to be conflicted because of what we've had this season so far. So there we go. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts in the comments as well below this video, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on catch up or whatever. Obviously leave a like and all that good stuff. And just a small matter of Anfield now to play Premier League leaders Liverpool. So yeah, that'll be nice and easy, won't it? Stroll in the park, and that will be okay. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Big kudos to those Norwich City fans who made a long and expensive trip up from Norfolk tonight. And onwards we go. Heads up, on to Liverpool. See you soon.